level 1 upgrade. And there you have it, guys. Team Losi's Aftershock. This was donated to me by Jason Ayers. Thanks a ton. Now, ever since I got this RC, I completely took it apart and cleaned it up and put it back together. Let me go ahead and tell you what I've done to it so far. So the first thing I got into was the receiver box. Now originally this thing was clear, but I didn't like that look too much, so I ended up painting it black. When I open it up, you'll see that I went ahead and I cut and trimmed some of the wires, just to cut down on the clutter. I also cut off a couple of wires coming off from the switch that lead off over here. I didn't want all the extra hookups, so I went ahead and got rid of them. After that, I went ahead and took out the front and rear diff, took them apart, cleaned and re-greased them. Then after that, I took all 4 of the shocks off, completely took them apart, cleaned them, and refilled them with some shock oil. After that came the transmission. I went ahead and took that completely apart, and to my surprise, it was in really good condition. But still, I went ahead and cleaned it out and re-greased it. Then I went ahead and moved on to the fuel line. Now the fuel line that was on here was orange and it seemed like it was in good shape, but still I wanted to go ahead and take no chances because I didn't know if there was a hole in it or not. So I replaced it with new fuel line and also added some heat guards to the fuel intake. So the first thing I had to fix on this RC was the pull string. It ended up breaking, so I went and got some really strong nylon string and I was able to fix it. So after fixing the pull string, I realized that one of the body posts was missing, so I went ahead and got a new one. Next up, I went ahead and took out all the dry shafts and checked them. All of them were in really good shape except for this one. When I was looking at the connection to the axle, you can see that the cylinder is missing from the middle as well as a proper pin. So I went ahead and bought the rebuild kit, which includes the cylinder, the grub screw, and the pin to hold it all together. But that's not all that was missing. I was also missing a bearing and the aluminum bushing that goes in the middle between the bearings. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and put this metal bearing in there and it should be strong enough to hold it together. But eventually I am going to have to get that aluminum bushing as well. And finally, I got into the engine and the carburetor. I completely took them apart and they were in excellent shape, guys. When I did put them together though, I found out that the air filter was torn, so I went ahead and replaced that. And the very last thing I got into was the gas tank. I took it out and cleaned it, and that's when I realized that there was a crack in the side. Now I was able to run this RC with this crack in the side, but that's not advised. Since it's not airtight, it's not going to be running very well, so I am going to have to replace this gas tank. And now it's time to go ahead and get into the upgrade. Jason Ayers also sent me this Axial AX3 remote and receiver. So let's go ahead and get these installed. Alright, so let's go ahead and open the receiver box and connect the receiver. I'm going to first hook up the steering servos because there is 2 of them, and that goes into channel 1. Then I have the power, which I'm going to plug into the top. And then finally we have the throttle servo, which is going to go into channel 2, just like that. Now we're just going to go ahead and tuck that in. Now, in order for me to get the antenna in the proper position, you'll see that there's a small little hole right here. I'm going to go ahead and slide that through the receiver box and then pull it out through the bottom of this hole for the antenna holder. Alright, and there you have it. Now all I have to do is close up the receiver box. Also, go ahead and put this body pin back in. And finally, just attach the antenna tube. Slide it over the antenna and stick it right in. And we are good to go. So next up, the power is hooked up. I do have the remote on. And now, we got the RC working perfectly. Check that out. Awesome! And I am done with this upgrade. Thanks, Jason, for this awesome donation and everything else you gave me. Believe me, I will take as much care of it as I possibly can, and I do have some big plans for this RC. And that was the level 1 upgrade for Chaos.